repair the string and ring elastic, what we're going to have to do is unscrew these 4 screws. Now we don't need to unscrew them all the way, we only need to unscrew them 3/4 of the way, just to make it less hassle on ourselves. Leave the back 2 screws in, just do the 4 here, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew these now. Alright, now to make this repair a lot easier on ourselves, you can see I've left these back 2 in there, and I've only unscrewed these 3/4 of the way, so I haven't taken them completely out. So if we look at that, we still have a little bit of the screw in the component there. What I'm going to do now is place one finger on the case to keep the lid down, and then I'm going to lift this up, and it should come off just like that. Now do not pull that lid up because it will cause the whole thing to let the lock tabs kick in on themselves, so you want to make sure that that lid stays nice and flat on there and doesn't lift up, so put that off to the side. Now if you have a broken wheel elastic here, you will notice that the elastic has broken inside here. So I'm just going to show this camera. So you will notice that this elastic has broken in here. So if the string was not retracting, you can now see how this would work. So if the string is not pulling itself back in, you can see how it's automatically retracting there, like that, then you will know this elastic is broken. So how do we replace this elastic here? Right. So first off, what you want to do is take your tweezers, and we're going to remove the broken elastic. Obviously this one I'm showing you isn't broken, but if yours is broken, I want to go ahead and remove it. Okay, and there we go. So now you can see I've removed the broken elastic there. Alright, so you can go ahead and get rid of this, we don't need it anymore. Then what you want to do is take your repair kit. We're going to get out one of our smaller elastics. So you can see in here we have 2 big ones and we have the 4 smaller ones. So we're going to take out one of the smaller elastics here. Now before you put this in, I would suggest just putting it over your 2 fingers and just running it around a little bit like this. That's just going to help loosen it up a little bit. Okay, then what we're going to do is thread it through the loop. Okay, so you can see on the string there's that loop, so you want to push it through like that. Okay, so now it is through the loop, and we're going to loop the big end of the elastic around like that, and we're going to pull this through like that. Okay, so you can see now that our fresh elastic is now looped onto the string loop. Okay. Now the next thing to do is to make sure that this string is appropriately seated in the wheel system, because if this is not mounted in the wheel system, then it will not pull the wheel around. Okay. So I'm going to show you this on the close-up camera here. Hopefully you guys can see this, but if you notice the wheel, there is a channel running through there. That is where the string must sit. So there is a channel running all the way around, just right here through the wheel, and that's where our string needs to go. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is take the tweezers, grab the elastic like this. I'm going to place it in our blade channel like that and pull the elastic until it seats itself around that plastic piece. And we're going to remove the tweezers and just push the elastic further down so that it's not tempted to come off like that. Okay, then what we're going to do is thread our string through the wheel like that. Bring it around, make sure it's set into the channel on the wheel guide there, so we'll make sure that's set in here. Okay, now to test and make sure it works properly, what you'll want to do is pull this and it should come around like that. So you can see how our wheel is spinning 180 degrees every time, and our lock tab is kicking in every time, just like that. Perfect. Okay, so this is how you replace the wheel tab. Now what you want to do is make sure that the pin is at the back, so you can see how on here our pin is towards the back, it's not at the front. So if it was pulled in this direction, it will be up the top, but we want it to be down the back. See how the pin is now at the bottom right there, that's where you want the pin to be. Then we're going to take our hidden blade assembly, we're going to put the wheel in like so, because we need that pin on the wheel to go into the slot on the slider there. So what we're going to do is put it in at an angle like this until you feel that pin go into the channel, and then push the whole casing down like that. Make sure the string is obviously in the channel on the case there so that it actually sits flat. And then what we can go ahead and do is re-screw in all the screws. Like that. I would suggest just putting in two, so put in two that are diagonal from each other. So I'm going to put in these two, and this will let us test if we have done it properly. Okay, so you can see I've put in these two, but I haven't screwed in these two yet, and that's just so that we can test to make sure it works. So if your wheel is not spinning 180 degrees every time, then you haven't done something right, or if you cannot pull the string, then you haven't done something right. Please go back and watch this video again, more carefully this time, and make sure that you have done it properly. Now that we can see that it works, we can go ahead and screw in the rest of the screws. Like that, and like that. Okay, now your hidden blade should be completely repaired. So now we can see that we have fully repaired the wheel elastic and the thing works perfectly now. Okay, the next repair that we are going on to is going to be the repair for the lock tabs and the kicker elastic. So like I said before, if the blade is coming out but it won't lock in place, it means the lock tabs have, the lock tab elastic has broken, or if the blade does not shoot in or out, it means that the kicker spring elastic has broken. Either way, the process for repairing these is exactly the same. So what we're going to want to do is the top 4 screws, we want to unscrew halfway this time, only halfway. And the back 2 screws we want to remove completely. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Again, go and put your screws in your box there so you don't lose them. Alright, we're going to take these ones out halfway this time, only halfway. Now the reason we do this halfway is so that the screw is still screwed into the top case and the wheel case, and that will save us any time unnecessarily trying to put both of these together. Okay. Okay, now, when we take this off, be prepared that it might explode. Obviously this thing is under tension, so you don't want something flying off and hitting you in the face. So just very cautiously take the top case off, like this. Put your hands over it if you can, and you can see that now these lock tabs have released themselves from the base. Now this is why we didn't unscrew these 4 screws completely, because you can see now that it's still attached to the top case and to the wheel case, and that saves us any time trying to put these back together when the only thing we're trying to repair is the actual blade unit itself. So if it's not an issue with your string and ring system, I would strongly suggest you only unscrew these halfway, and that way you can keep the wheel casing assembly all together, and you can see that still works perfectly like that. So we didn't need to take that apart, sorry, which is nice. All right, now we want to fix this. Okay, so now this is where it's going to become pretty clear as to what's actually wrong with your hidden blade. So you can see we have the 2 lock tabs like this. Now if this elastic is broken, obviously the lock tabs are not working properly, so we need to replace this elastic. So to replace this is very easy. Remove the broken elastic. We're going to take our repair kits like so, and we're going to take out one of the big elastics, and then we're going to stretch it like this, just a little bit, just so that it's a bit more malleable. And then in order to put this back on, what we would do is take one of the elastics. I strongly suggest you start off with the back lock tab first. So you can see one of the lock tabs is shorter and one of them is longer. If I hold these upside down, you can see one's short, one is long, like that. Now the longer one goes at the back and the shorter one goes at the front of the hidden blade, and they always face away from each other, okay? So they end up being inverted like this. I mean, what's the word? I don't know. Everted. So the short one will be at the front, the long one will be at the back, like that, and they will point away from each other, like this. And you can see on the lock tabs, there is a sealing on one side, but there is no sealing on the bottom. Now the side that's open, you can see there's a gap down here. The side that's open will always face the bottom, and the side that has the line on the top will always face the top casing here, okay? Alright, so I'm going to show you how to replace both of these right now. So we're going to take off the kicker elastics, like that. So obviously if this was broken, it would be broken. For your kickers, you want to take one of your small elastics. So you should have 4 of these ones in there, so we're using another one of these. And we are going to replace the ones on here, okay? So what we want to do is just give it a little stretch first, just to loosen it up. We're going to take our lock tabs. Now if you notice as well, the lock tabs, the kicker spring, sorry, one is rounded. We have a rounded edge on one, and one is straight. So if I hold this here, you can see this one has a rounded edge and this one is just straight across. The rounded one always goes at the back of the blade, like that. And the square one here goes at the front, like that. And you can see they face away from each other as well. So we're going to go ahead and take these out. Alright, so using our fresh elastic, what you want to do is make sure you've got your front kicker there, the one with the straight edge, remember? We're going to loop our elastic through the back channel like this. Okay. Then we're going to twist it into a figure 8, like that, and then take the top loop and re-hook it back onto the kicker. So now you should have 2 elastics, well, one elastic looped over itself onto the kicker, like that. Then we're going to take our other kicker, the one that goes at the back of the blade, and we're going to loop that through the other end of the elastics, like this. And pull it nice and tight so that it's like that. So you can see now how we have this set, just like that. Cool. Then what we're going to do is put it into our blade unit. So starting with the back one, we'll put that one in first, and then we'll put the front one in, just like that. Now make sure that the the kicker is sitting flat, and you'll know that because the tab underneath it should sit within this tab on the blades. You can see that fits in there nicely. And then what we want to do, just to make sure the elastic is set properly, is just pull it. Now if you can see what just happened there, you can see how the second loop came off of the kicker. Now this is a very common thing, and you do not want that to happen, so what you should do is take it back out and repeat this process, loop it around, and hook that back on there, like that. Put this on here, just like that, and then put it into your blade, just like this. Okay, now pull it up, just like that, just so that the elastics will seat into each other properly, okay? Alright, so now what we have is the replaced kicker elastic. Now we're going to replace the lock tab elastic. Now, like I said before, the longer lock tab out of the two goes at the back, and the shorter one will go at the front, okay? Now to replace these, it's quite simple. I'll zoom you in a little bit here as well. So what we're going to want to do is take the elastic and we are going to loop it through the notch on the lock tab. So if you can see on the lock tab there is a little pin sticking up in there. What we want to do is take the elastic and we are going to put it onto that pin, push it down using your thumb so that it is like this, seated on there, and then bring the elastic around, keeping your thumb holding that elastic on that pin. Bring the elastic through the back piece like that. So you can see there's a cutout there for it. Cool. And then put your finger on top of that so that it holds it in like this. Then you're going to want to repeat this step but with the front one. Push that on there and bring them through just like that. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that. Now what we're going to do is take our blade. Remember, long one is going at the back and the short one here is going at the front. We're going to pull these nice and tight, and we're going to place the pin on the bottom of these into the holes on the base like that. So pull that in. Alright, so then you're going to take your other hand and hold those kickers on like this, and then using your tweezers just push the elastic into the elastic channel so that it's seated in there. So you can see now that that elastic is seated into that channel. Cool. Alright, then what we're going to do is at the back of the system you want to swing the lock tab out so that it locks onto the blade. So you can see now I cannot slide that blade forwards because this lock tab is in there. So very important, make sure the lock tab is out, holding the blade in. Then we're going to take our slider piece here. Starting off with, put it in the front of the system. So you can see we got our front kicker there. We're going to put the front of the slider. Now it's very important you get the orientation of the slider correct. Do not put it in like this. Do not put it in like this. Put it in like this. So the two sloped edges here should be facing towards the lock tabs. The shorter end of the slider between the gap and the back should be towards the back of the blade, and the long end here should be towards the front of the blade, like that. So now what I'm going to do is put in the front so that it catches on that kicker, as you can see there. Slide it forwards. Okay, now you can see I'm holding this at about a 30-degree angle to the base, if I go to the side view here. So you see I'll put it in at 30 degrees, hook on that front piece there, push it forwards, put the slider in, and voila, like that. Now the slider is set in there. So you can now take your hand off the slider, it should be set in there, just like that. Then what we're going to do is take our wheel assembly here. Now you can see at the back there is a hole right there, and that is the one we want to put on the back lock tab, and then the hole at the front here is the one that's going to go on the front lock tab. So starting off from the back, I'm going to slide this over, so I'll show you using this close-up camera here. Slide it over until the piece sets itself on there. Then I'm going to bring the other one over and pop that on here. Okay, now the only other thing is to make sure the pin of the wheel is seated properly, so I'm going to just twist this around a little bit. You should be able to feel that click in. Yep, so now that's clicked in. So you can see now the whole thing is flat, and I just had to wiggle that a little bit to get it to sit down completely. Okay, now one thing I will say is if your front lock tab doesn't seat itself properly, you just need a thin piece of either paper or a business card, and you would slide it between the top case and the base and hit the lock tab, and that will seat it in properly, okay? But now what we can do is screw this thing back together, like so. Now I would recommend, again, just doing 2 screws like we did before, just to make sure everything is correct. And then we are going to go ahead and put in the back screw, this one here, like this. Now the reason why I'm putting this side in is because that's the one that needs to hold the lock tab in position. So I'm going to put that on there, like this, and we'll screw the front one in just a little bit as well. Okay, cool. Then let's go ahead and give it a test. So you can see we have successfully repaired the blade. Now if you are wanting to stop there, obviously we can put the other screws in. So put the back one in and sink the other one in, okay? And that would be your completed repair of the kicker elastic and the lock tab elastic. The last one I'm going to show you how to repair is the blade elastic for the dual extended model. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of these back off again. Remember, 4 screws only halfway. If your wheel blade or your string blade hasn't broken, just take these ones out halfway. Okay, let's go ahead and take this off. Alright. Cool, so what would you do if your blade elastic has broken? So if the elastic on your blade, which is this little tiny one that runs along there, has broken, this lock tab is not going to activate anymore, so your blade will not lock in place anymore. So I'm going to show you how to replace this one now. So first off, we need to remove the broken elastic if we can. Obviously, it should be broken, so it's probably already fallen off. Make sure there's nothing in the actual case, like the broken elastic's not obstruting anything. Okay, cool. So, you can see how the elastic on there is gone, so now this is not locking into place at all. So what we want to do is replace that. So in our repair kits, you can see in the middle there we have 2 of our small little elastics, so we're going to need one of these. I've got an extra one here, so I'm going to use this one. Using our tweezers, what we want to do is grab the elastic gently, like that, and then we are going to first loop it through the slot at the front of the blade, and then loop it around the back. Now it should sit in that channel that is milled on the blade along there. So you can see how that sits within that channel. However, you can see now that the lock tab isn't activating because it's being pushed in. So you can see how it sticks out here. So what we want to do is push the lock tab all the way up like this. Then we're going to take our tweezers and grab that elastic like this and push it to the back. So if I can show you that, we're going to take these tweezers, hook that elastic and push it to the back. Then bring your lock tab all the way in and then release the elastic. And now it should be spring loaded. So you can see how that lock tab is now spring loaded. And then just test it to make sure it works, push it out the way, blade should slide in, and when you pull it out, it should now lock in place again, like that. Awesome. Okay, now we need to put this whole thing back together. So again, we're going to retract the blade all the way, put it on here, and slide it in. Make sure we're applying slight downward pressure and sliding it in fully, just like this. So now it's sitting nicely in there. Then going to do our lock tabs. Remember, rounded one towards the back, flat one towards the front. Take your elastic here, double loop it over the kickers, like so. Then we're going to take our other one, hook that through the both of the loops of the elastic, give it a little tug, sit in your kickers like this, making sure that the back one is seated on the channel of the blade. Then give them a little tension just to make sure the elastic's seated properly. Then we're going to take our elastic lock tabs here. Make sure both of the elastics are seated in the lock tabs like that. And we are going to place the long one towards the back and the short one towards the front, like so. Put a finger on both of these to hold them down. Using our tweezers, we're going to press the elastic into the blade channel like this. And make sure our rear lock tab is holding that blade in. You can see that is locked in. I cannot pull it out because this lock tab is in the way. Alright, then I'm going to take our slider and putting it in at 30 degrees. I'm going to push the front kicker forwards and then pop in the back of the slider like this. Now it's seated. Then we're going to take our top case, starting off with the back. Slide it on top until the lock tab is now in the hole in the back. Then slide our top one over until that one is seated. And then what we need to do is spin this just a little bit till it locks into the slider. You can see that just compressed down. And then we are going to start putting in all of our screws again. So now, I can't stress this enough, do not over tighten your screws, okay? Do not over tighten them. So once you feel it start to get tight down the bottom, do not keep spinning the screw because it will unthread the plastic. So just enough, just like that, is all you need to keep it screwed in properly. Okay, there we go. And we'll put in the other screw here. Cool. Alright, then we'll take our two back screws and replace these. Alright, now if you've done everything correct, your blade should work. Now, I'm just going to show you guys something. So if you deploy your blade like this, and it doesn't lock, see how that's not locked in place? It means the front kicker on your blade isn't seated properly. So if I bring you over to this camera, you can see how here it is flat, but in between the top case here and the base there is a gap there, and that is because the lock tab is not seated. So get yourself a X-Acto knife or a business card. We're going to put it in where the gap is here, like so, and then we're going to slide it forwards until you'll feel it hit the lock tab, and then I want you to just give it a gentle push, and you should feel it click, like you probably just heard that. Then we can pull it out. And now you'll see that it's a lot flatter there. So then I'm just going to unscrew this one so we can get it nice and flat now. Okay, and then screw it back in now that it's flat. Okay, now you can see that on the edge it is nice and flat. Okay, now this should work. So you can see we have fully repaired our hidden blades. Now that is pretty much all the issues, unless you have actually stabbed something with this and broken something. This is only the issues that should go wrong with your blade, and that is how to fix them. So yeah guys, hope you enjoyed that in-depth tutorial. I know this was a long video, but it's really important you do this properly. So yeah, I hope that was clear enough and you guys understood. But if you didn't do it properly, it won't work, but if you did it properly, it will work, I promise you. So if it's not working, you've done something wrong. I would definitely check that lock tab is seated correctly at the front. Make sure your wheel is actually, the pin on the wheel is in the gap in the slider, and make sure that your slider is around the correct way, it's not upside down or flipped over. And make sure that your kickers are seated on the blade track, make sure the blade is in properly, and make sure the lock tabs are in the correct orientation, and make sure you have the short one to the front and the long one to the back, okay? And make sure the kickers are the correct way so that the rounded one is to the back and the straight one is to the front. If you've done all that, it should go together perfectly. Also make sure the string is seated on the wheel, and that should be you good to go, guys. So you can see now this works perfectly and it's nice and powerful. So awesome guys, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.